Because what do? We keep returning the same MPs year in, year out in every electorate.
It is. It would be. This is going to happen 200 times a day. Maybe... Mad world. Every day. 44 trains a day. 44 of those going through our suburbs.
'Cause our name is our virtue, but I won't.
I'd like to thank Hornsby Council for doing that, because they're going to put from 3,000 dwellings, 27,000 car movements a day. It's not me saying that, that's the RTA.
Stand up, don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up.
I'm not here today to ask the ETTT Construction Authority if they know where the endangered local resident Beecroft Powerful Owl has gone. That family's been here for hundreds of years. Who cares about a bloody owl? I do.
Yeah.
Nor what has happened to the local native parrot and kookaburra population living along the rail corridor, or the possums, or the blue tongues for that matter. Or what impact the dust from the ETTT construction is having.
And so I think that we've got to look at the situation where ordinary people have a say in the planning process. And that's why I'm keen here today to join forces with all people regardless of their political posture.
It's a very, very mad world.
So as we come together in the most important way to save the best areas of Sydney. In this area, you are all, as you know, that reason you're here today. You're also fortunate in being in this wonderful area because it's always under threat.
Mad world. Mad world. Mad world. It's definitely a mad world in Beecroft.
We failed in 1997 when our lawmakers in this state passed Schedule 33 of the Protection of the Environment Operations Act. In that, it's a polluter's paradise. It permits freight trains that are not new to network to do whatever they like on the network.
Very mad world.
Know of the Willamette people. We have destroyed the Willamette people. It's time to make sure we don't destroy our shared heritage.
Stand up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up.
What we have is planning for the building of new railway and other infrastructure. What we don't have is planning for that infrastructure to be developed within the community.
Baby, stand with me tonight.
Placed below the pavement. The excuse that we as residents in surveys asked not to lose car parking is just not good enough an excuse. As the development occurs...
Well, there was a town in North Ontario,
and we can see it around us. We need to do something which will allow the scars to heal, at least in part. We can do that in a tangible way by making sure that we have creepers growing over concrete walls and fences to soften the visual impact of car parks and railway infrastructure. The excuse put forward by Transport New South Wales that
we're not against development as such, but we believe that development should be carried out in a responsible, sensitive, accountable, transparent and sustainable manner.
To no consequence. Has the government really consulted and been sensitive to your community's concerns?
This government has opened up our no-take sanctuary zones for fishing. Our national parks are being commercialised.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights.
Vegetation regulations weakened.
our forests being destroyed for fossil fuel mining. And as Kim mentioned, ecologically sustainable development principles are being gutted.
They build us one more railway track from Epping to Thornley and all the way back.
The Greens, as you all know, have a very strong commitment to environmental protection, grassroots democracy, and public participation in decision making. We also have a very clear position on how transport should be delivered in New South Wales.
Sure, there's no need to compromise.
Community impacts of the construction of this line. And that does include removal of endangered ecological communities, cutting down of the bunya pines, destruction of our habitat, and pollution from coal dust, diesel fumes, and the noise that the community will have to bear. And I have consistently questioned the Minister for Transport about...
The government will have to address this. It will have to address the wheel squeal, the increased noise disruption to your lives that will come from the Epping to Thornley third track.
Of native bush that are left. I don't accept that, and I never will.
No more, it cannot.
On Transport Minister Gladys Berejiklian, on the Environment Minister Robin Parker, on the Premier Mr O'Farrell, we'll have to put the pressure on them. You, your community groups, people like Maureen and myself in the upper house, where the non-government parties can mount a bit of a challenge to the tyranny of government. What has happened to the native...
I really didn't ever anticipate today.
Don't get me wrong. I fully understand, unlike the ETTT Authority, that the loss of trees and greenness is impacting very adversely on everyone here, man, woman and child. Deakin University last week has just released research results on how...
last but not least, our very own Graham Ross, well-known TV identity and garden guru. So, thank you.
We mustn't let them water down our resolve. But first, before I look to the future, I feel compelled to address one major issue. I've been voting Liberal on and off pretty much most of the time since I started voting. At 8:53, the Premier faxed me this letter. I feel a bit like Chamberlain getting off the plane having met Hitler. Howard. He went on to become Prime Minister. I've also assisted Malcolm Fraser during his Prime Ministry, our local federal member Philip Ruddock. The fact reads, I've just heard, this is 8:53, in 2012, he will attest to my lifelong support for the Liberal side of politics. But this is not to say I didn't have friends in other quarters. Green Senator Kerry Nettle was a good mate. December. I just heard your cheerio call.
Don't just be good guys and do what you're told. In the land of freedom, green and gold. Let's hear it. Under our heritage sun you pine.
Happy to talk about it. I'm out for the rest of the day, but call me on this number all week. Signed, Barry O'Farrell.
Under the heritage sun you pine. They're going to build a railway line.
I rang Barry, and my Telstra bill will show that 1 minute past 9 on Monday morning, I tried to ring the Premier to have a chat on your behalf to see if we could get some common sense and some communication happening. Neither his office nor he would take my call. I knew at that stage, because I'd been around these guys for a long time, I knew back in December 2012 we had a fight on our hands.
'Cause our name is our virtue, but I won't...
Australia's most popular Prime Minister in our history was voted out of his seat and out of his office by his own blue ribbon electorate. Like the ETTT has done, you weaken the remainder. They become much more susceptible to damage from stormy weather and the cyclonic winds that we've been experiencing in the last couple of years. Part of a forest. The Insurance Council of Australia
need to know this, as big mature trees in our suburb that could have lived...
Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.
...for decades more, will now be under threat of coming down because of what has already happened. Heaven forbid that anyone should be injured in those circumstances. You see, the ETTT and Hornsby Shire Council, we've only just started on you guys. It's almost too late to talk.
Helpless, helpless, helpless. Baby, can you hear me now?
And I must at this point pay respect to the huge effort that the Beecroft Cheltenham Civic Trust has put in over many decades, but often totally ignored by Council and the ETTT to their loss. Again, the ETTT's behaviour has forged a new community alliance, as it is a very rare and precious forest that we have. This unique soil with the tall blue gum high forest is less than 1 kilometre wide and no more than 3 kilometres long.
We're all lamenting our Sydney Turpentine Ironbark Forest and the Blue Gum High Forest and the like. I'd like you to know that Hornsby Council has approved a subdivision of 240 hectares out to South Dural, which has Sydney Turpentine Ironbark Forest and Blue Gum High Forest on it.
Beecroft last week, I was in Melbourne, but my heart sank. I knew the tree was going, as so many of you have said earlier. The hoop pine and the bunyas, well over 100 years old.
I was feeling like my day had just begun.
But they're not endemic. They're not endemic to Beecroft, but they are part of our identity. They're part of this little park, but more than that, they're part of our community. They're part of our identity. I think we could create a memorial avenue of iconic proportions right along the more visible parts of the ETTT and wherever space is available. Yes, the existing row of Araucarias here in the station park, we could add maybe a Norfolk pine